Gracias. Welcome, everybody. Bienvenidos. Buenos dias. If anybody wants to sit, please, there's a lot of empty seats there. I know it's hard to get through. Don't worry, you can walk around the front right now. So you want to introduce anybody? Zach? Señor Sepúlveda? It's right over there. How beautiful is this space? This is Casa Mexico, and you really feel like you're in a Mexican casa. I also want to just mention that we were in an actual Mexican casa, in a real Casa Mexico, when we had the pleasure of Carlos González Gutierrez, who is the Consul General de Mexico for Austin, invited us to his actual home. So this is the second Casa Mexico that we're, guest of Carlos. But thank you, Carlos, for being so gracious. This was actually thrown together very quickly, which is how amazing these pop-up charlas have become over the last few years. And it only works when you have somebody at the other end listening to your charla. So there's talking and then there's listening. And thank you, Carlos, for listening to us. Also want to be able to thank our friends, Juan Carlos Arias and the team from Abargon. If you ever need this kind of work done, they are remarkable and have transformed this space, of course, under the guidance of our friends from the government of Mexico. So Juan Carlos is actually host us in Mexico. So we have an office in Mexico City in Polanco, thanks to Juan Carlos. So thank you, Juan Carlos, for everything you guys do. And just a quick thank you to Matt Reitman and Esteban Ortiz, who are part of the Yo Soy project that we are incubating at the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. Again, all of this ties into identity. I just want to talk about what is our identity as Latinos, because I believe in order to break down those barriers between us as Latinos, we need to find out who each other are. We need to speak, we need to listen, we need to connect and to strengthen. And that is very, very powerful these days. I'm so tired of hearing someone say they're not Latino enough because they're fair-skinned or have a last name that's Irish. I'm tired of saying somebody isn't Latino enough because they're too dark, or they're of African descent, or they're too indigenous, or they're too gay, or they're trans, or that they don't speak enough Spanish, or they speak really bad Spanish like I do. What's interesting is I absolutely no me da pena. I don't care. I will talk bad Spanish and nobody can shame me because it was my first language. There is a power in pride of being Latino, but we also, as much as we're all against building walls, which I would imagine all of us are, why do we build walls between us? Why do we say, oh, he's Peruano, he's Chilean, he's Argentine, he's Mexican, he's Salvadoran, he's Nicaraguan, he's Bolivian? This is a time when we need to come together because there's a whole lot of other people that are trying to define us. So this charla is about defining ourselves and then listening to ourselves. So with that, I want to invite Carlos to come up, say a few words, and I'm trying to encourage him to do a very extemporaneous, impromptu charla of his own. So he is on the spot.
Muchas gracias, Antonio. If I define the terms, let me speak in Spanish for just 1 minute. Me siento muy orgulloso de que justamente esta sea el primer evento de Casa México en South by Southwest. Yo también me siento muy agradecido con los muchos socios que hicieron esto posible, empezando por el patrón de patrones, que es Juan Carlos Arias, y también por el diseñador de producción que ideó todo esto, Alex Martínez, y como otras 25 personas que están atrás y que nunca se llevan el crédito, pero que ellos ya saben que nosotros les reconocemos mucho su talento y su dedicación. Y se me hace muy importante que Casa México abriera con un evento que reúne a jóvenes hablando de su identidad y de cómo nos vemos a nosotros mismos y de cómo sentimos nuestro sentido de pertenencia. Y le agradezco mucho a Antonio que hubiera pensado en nosotros para organizar este evento. Yo acepto el reto, aunque de una manera limitada porque quiero ser breve, yo estoy aquí para escuchar, y también limitada porque está mi hija, y nunca en la vida me atrevería a ir a toda velocidad en términos de charlas de este tipo con ella. Me inhibe un poquito. I am a 55-year-old career diplomat. I am the happy husband of Alina. I have been married with her for 30 plus years. I have two daughters, Marina and Camila, who's going to be arriving on Saturday. And I have the great privilege, the enormous privilege of representing my country here in Central Texas, together with a group of very professional colleagues who work at the Mexican consulate. You cannot imagine how big an honor it is to represent your country overseas. And for me, it is also a special privilege to do it with the support of a very strong family, my wife and my two daughters, and a very good team of colleagues who help me do my daily job. But besides that, I have had the privilege of spending my 30 plus years in the Foreign Service working with the Mexican diaspora in the United States. That has been my whole career. I have never been posted to Europe, to Asia, to Latin America. I have been posted to different cities in the United States, including our embassy in Washington, D.C., and the consulates in Los Angeles, in Sacramento, in Austin, and soon in San Diego. I was the executive director of the Institute for Mexicans Abroad. And so I have had the privilege of meeting lots of people who are part of this diaspora and their children. Many of them are here today with us. In these 30 years, I have not found a single migrant whose story is not interesting. It's fascinating. If you ever need to do something interesting, go and look for an immigrant and ask him about his efforts, his tribulations to come here. With no exception, in case you are asking a Mexican, or with very few exceptions, I should say, most of them will tell you that they were coming for only 1 year or 2 years. They live in the illusion of impermanence, and suddenly they realize that they have established roots in this country. And it's very hard to them to accept that they will eventually have to recognize that they will stay here for good. And they always talk about return. But also a huge rule in my business, something that I have seen behind every immigrant I have had the privilege of meeting, is that none of them left their country por gusto, willingly. They all tell you that they had to leave Mexico, that they did not want to leave. And when you ask them why, they said, because I had to promise a better future for my kids. So I hope that this Casa Mexico is enjoyed first and foremost by the kids of those immigrants. Muchas gracias.
Buenos dias. Welcome to South by Southwest in ATX in Austin, Texas. And so isn't it fitting that this is the kickoff? I consider this the kickoff of South by Southwest Interactive because we started at 9:30. And South by starts at 10. My name is Mark Madrid, and I am just so honored to be a co-host today at this Charla. It is so great to be back in Austin. That encompasses a large part of my heart. I was the former CEO of the Greater Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I was in this post for 3 years, and it was an opportunity that God put right on my lap. And it's something I'll never forget. This special and unique place, this vibrant, eclectic place called Austin, Texas, with all its complexity, the love, but most importantly, the people, specifically the Latinos and Latinas in this city. Yes, indeed, they deserve a rounding applause and a shout out, a grito. So I'm here to kick off the Charla. And just like the Consul, thank you for being such an instrumental leader here. I did not know that I had to issue a Charla. So I had to make a decision in the bathroom of what I was going to talk about. So here we go. You know, the essence of this is to establish who we are, our identity. So here it goes. Even though I walk in the darkest valley, I fear no evil, because you are with me. I'm here to clear the air, and I have 5 minutes to do it. Because behind all this rah-rah and energy, for which I'm known for, in fact, if that's what's slapped on my tombstone, that means I lived a purposeful life. But what is it between this bow tie and these Lucchese boots? What's in here? What this has endured is a history of injustice, pain, and suffering. And so I'd like to go through that with you now, because that has been the transformation of Yo Soy, who I am today. And it took me almost 48 years to figure this out. What could I be talking about? Well, it happened in a very important and critical portion of my career, when I landed on that opportunity to get my dream job. I'm going to time myself as well, because I don't want to go over. To become president of a bank. And I was number 2 at the time. And all of a sudden, I started having flashbacks of when I was molested as a child by hombres in my own family. And then I started having issues with coming out. People could figure it out, but I had not issued that to the public. So there was a barrage of shame and guilt and anger that I was dealing with. And it converged on one night with several Everclear margaritas celebrating a birthday. But was it a celebration? I don't think it was, because I jumped out of a moving vehicle going 35 miles an hour. And then later was told, and you know, most of you who know me, I'm a runner, that I might lose my right leg. You might be facing, Mr. Madrid, an amputation. Well, the next few weeks and months, and actually a couple years, were something I don't talk about. But I had a sponge and a pan, and I would take baths every single day. But what I realized in that experience is that even though I walk in the darkest alley, I fear no evil, because you are with me. And what I hung on to was my faith. And then I had this magical moment, and I didn't lose my job, and I became even closer to becoming that CEO. You know what I realized? That what is this? Well, I'm a bow tie wearing, boot scooting, Christian, marathon running, equalizer fighting, CEO, Latino, gay, male, Devo. That's what I learned about myself, and I've never been the same since. So the rah-rah and the energy and the faith, it's all real. It's all real, it's all authentic, because I am grateful for all the scars that I have that have formed me where I am today. In fact, I have another scar that I got from being attacked in September in the streets of Philadelphia. So if I hadn't gone through all this, I wouldn't have been able to graduate from hand therapy and surgery in record time, even ahead of Stanford athletes. Yeah, that's me. So what I'm here today to issue to you is think about firing up your faith because you won't be the same. And thank you for this opportunity. All right, where's our timekeeper today? Because all right, did I go over? Tell me the truth. Okay. Oh, 4 minutes.
But now it's up.
So, Crystal Peña, if you're here, you are up next. We're looking, and I know Crystal, and this would be a compelling charla. So, Crystal, are you here? Okay. Giovanni Escobedo. All right, Gio, there you are. I'm so excited to hear you, my friend. Come on up.
Okay, so I didn't know I was going to be technically the first one. But I am very excited to be here today. And I am very excited because just like Mark, I was in the restroom thinking of what to talk about. And I had a different charla in mind. But today I stand here in the intersection of so many of my identities. And just when I walked into the museum, I saw this beautiful butterfly dress. And I just kind of felt welcome. And because I am an immigrant. And I left Mexico when I was 15. And just like Mark, there were many reasons for why I had to leave. Or like the consul mentioned, I had to leave. I was a 15-year-old thinking over there in Catholic school what my life was going to be if I kept living in that country. Just like Mark, I was a gay teen, not knowing what to do, going to Catholic school, learning every day that whatever I was wrong. And back then in Mexico, they were killing gay people. So when I looked at my family, an extremely conservative family, when I looked at my professors, when I looked at society, I decided that Mexico wasn't a safe place for me. I wanted to liberate myself. And just at the age of 15, I decided to cross the US-Mexico border. And it's been a very difficult journey. You know, when I came to Mexico and I went to the United States, I went to a Mexican restaurant, and I am from San Luis Potosí. So I've always said that there's some identities that you can wear and just live. And that for me has been being Mexican. Even though sometimes being Mexican with me didn't really sit very well. For my own experiences, I rejected the term Mexican. And I adopted the term Latino because when people called me Mexican, they remind me of those who had attacked me just when I was a child. They reminded me of all these injustices in a country that didn't really welcome me, in a country that sometimes even meant an attack just for being gay. So I tell people, don't call me Mexican, I'm Latino. And when I went to this Mexican restaurant just in about a week when I arrived in the country, I ordered some enchiladas. But I am from San Luis Potosí. So those of you who have been to San Luis Potosí know that enchiladas are not a raw tortilla with salsa on top of it. And when the server brought me these enchiladas, I was like, lady, there's something wrong with this. And that's when I discovered that, yeah, I was Mexican, but I was more than Mexican. I was Mexican and a Potosino, right? And I discovered that there were many of my identities buried within me that I had to come to terms with and tell people, yeah, I am a brown, Latino, Mexican guy, gay guy, and what else? In 2016, I had the privilege of going back to Mexico with advanced parole because I'm a DACA recipient. And the ambassador invited us to celebrate 4th of July at the US Embassy, right? And it was the first time in my entire life of living in this country and fighting that dichotomy of being a Latino immigrant, undocumented gay guy, and being welcomed into a place that also rejected me for the same ideas of what my identities were, for being brown Mexican with an accent and being gay. Being gay in the United States is not easy, especially if you carry with you all these identities. But I was there at the embassy, and the ambassador said, "Welcome." We celebrated, we sang, and it was the first time that I felt like an American, and I had to go out of America to feel that. But today, I truly feel like a Mexican in a foreign country. So today, I also come here. When I walked into this building, it reminded me of all these things, of what I am. And I was just sitting at the chair listening to the consul and to Mark. And it just came to my mind that I also had to go out of Mexico to truly feel like a Mexican. The same way I had to go out of the United States to feel like an American. And it's a dichotomy that I deal with every day. Because although I sit in the intersection of so many identities, and I am something, and there are so many of my own identities that bring me peace. Right behind me, all these beautiful, whatever it is, beautiful nonetheless, reminds me of my religion and of being a Hindu, Mexican, American, documented gay guy. And that's what brings me peace. I am one of those who follows a non-Judeo-Christian religion, and that's what brings me peace. And my time's up. Thank you.
Gio, thank you for bringing your truth and your peace to the stage. Now it's my honor to introduce Juan Carlos. Ah, yeah. Come on up.
Sí, en inglés seguro no me va a salir bien. Mucho gusto, ¿cómo están? ¿Cuánto tengo? 30 segundos. Yo soy mexicano, igual que muchos de ustedes. Yo estoy un poco diferente, sin embargo muy parecido. Mis papás eran guatemaltecos, los dos ya murieron. Y ellos fueron a México en unas condiciones relativamente diferentes, pero siempre buscando un mejor lugar para ellos y para los que veníamos después. Entonces, yo soy un chicano en México. No sé si eso ayuda un poco, pero bueno, al fin. Inmigrantes al fin. Soy sobre todo, me considero sobre todo un hombre de familia, esposo, padre orgullosísimo de 3 hijos, 2 de los cuales andan por aquí, uno que tiene el teléfono por allá, que le colgó el teléfono a Carlos y... larga historia. Pero bueno, un hombre de familia, amante de la tecnología, desde que me acuerdo todo lo que tenía botones y focos y demás me llamaba la atención. Y eso ha definido mi trayectoria profesional. Estudié ingeniería civil, se supone que debería estar haciendo puentes, pero afortunadamente estoy haciendo esto en vez de... Y la tecnología me ha permitido acercarme a gente. Es increíble cómo muchos generadores de opinión dicen que la tecnología nos aleja cuando en realidad nos tiene más cerca que nunca. Es más, es tan abrumantemente cerca que todo mundo sabemos lo que está haciendo el otro en el momento. Por ejemplo, ahorita nos están streaming live, así que espero que haya muchos que nos estén viendo. Pero el tema es que este caminar me ha ayudado a conocer gente interesante de casi todos los caminos de la vida. He sido privilegiado porque a pesar de que tuve un head start por ahí, pues he logrado cumplir mis ambiciones. Y probablemente la ambición más compleja que tengo es tratar de unir nuestros mundos. Creo que estamos comenzando a dar pasos en ese sentido. Es gracias a la labor de gente como ustedes que estamos haciendo esto de exponerles lo que somos, lo que traemos en el corazón, como lo dije ayer en una entrevista en la que estaba con Alejandro, mi hermano que está por ahí, que esto es una labor de amor, lo estamos haciendo con toda la intención de mostrar que queremos traer al México con el que a veces se han perdido los vínculos, ¿no? Un México difícil, un México tirano, un México que deja ir a gente con talento. Y créanme, no lo hace con ganas, es más, lo hace sin intención, ¿no? Es un país que está rebasado, la riqueza de su gente es enorme, la solidaridad es tremenda. Me acuerdo en los sismos del 85 y en los últimos, lo increíble que era ver cómo todos se juntaban para ayudar, junto con militares a los lados que nos decían que no pasáramos y nosotros recogiendo piedras y dando comida, ¿no? Entonces, tengo capítulos que no me atrevería nunca a comparar de drama en mi vida, pero creo que lo que quiero transmitirles, no creo, estoy seguro, que lo que quiero transmitirles es que nosotros nos sentimos hermanos de ustedes, a pesar, me queda clarísimo que hay una pérdida de vinculación y esta rotura se da porque lo que sea el conjunto México los deja ir. Ojalá podamos a través de estas formas recuperarlos. Es un honor para mí compartir el espacio con ustedes, pero lo más que quiero hacer es mostrarles nuestro cariño de allá para acá, individualmente, grupalmente y bueno, que no suene anuncio de Casa México. No quiero desvirtuar el sentido de esto. Pero lo que les digo es que esta es la forma en la que se manifiesta nuestro amor. Venimos hasta acá, cargamos, nos duele la espalda, de nuevo es poco drama, nada que ver, pero hicimos esto para juntarnos y ojalá restablecer el tejido que nunca se ha roto, nada más ha dado de sí, ¿no? Gracias.
And let's give him a hand for this production. Doesn't it look beautiful in here? And I want to put my bid on one of those Mexico is the shit jackets. I just wanted to know. I've got my credit card right here. Next up is Gloria. Gloria, please come up to the stage. Thank you.
I thought Norda Comstock invited me to this because I got an email. I said, oh, great idea, Norda. I'm going to go ahead and put in that I'll speak if they want me to. And she said, I didn't invite you. I just broadcast their great message. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of the people, all the organizations that are behind this because I have had so many opportunities. I'm very grateful and I'm very thankful. Looking at my background, you might think, well, how in the world could a person like me get where I am? And my parents were born in Saltillo. I was born in Monterrey. My mother graduated at the top of her class at Saltillo Normal Superior. My father was a bastard child who was thrown out of his home and given to the lady who adopted him. And the man, she was an illiterate Indian who did not let him go to school until he was 10 years old because she was scared that his soul might be taken. The man who adopted him was in the cavalry, and he married a very young lady who was the lady who adopted my father. So my father was brilliant, and the two loved each other. Some beautiful photographs of both of them walking down the street in Saltillo. And they moved. My grandfather wanted my father to go to the university, but he didn't want to, so he went to a technical school. And he was an incredible tool and die maker, and he always worked very hard to support the family. So they had 7 children. Out of the 7 of us, I have a couple of masters, a PhD, have brothers and sisters who have all these different degrees. And what I loved about my parents is that they encouraged us to study whatever we wanted to, what made us happy. So I got waitlisted at Rice University for architecture. Now, oh no, what am I going to do? I didn't know anything about education, so my counselor said, go to Austin College. So I went there, but they didn't have architecture. I was trying to be practical. I'm from Monterrey. and and so I thought, oh yeah, what am I going to do? I don't know anything. So I like French, so I studied French and art. And so I thought, oh, I have to be practical. I'm not going to make it as an artist. So what I did was I got in a teacher program. And they had a bachelor's and a master's program, and I studied in France. So I'm very fortunate to be able to speak in Spanish because my mother did not allow us to speak in English at home because she wanted us to speak Spanish well. I don't speak it as well as she would like me to, but I try. Anyway, her parents, she got a 4-year scholarship in Texas. I think it was TCU or TWU, but her father would not let her go. And so, because no, he didn't want her to go far from home, from Saltillo. So then, when she was older, then she let us go all over the world. I have a brother that went to Botswana. And so we have, because of her experience, we have, the 7 of us and our own children have had many opportunities to travel. So my time is almost up. There's so much I could talk about, but in my PhD studies, what I saw was research that showed familism is something that can be negative, but it can be very positive. Because not for everybody, but for many Latinos, when a person is making a decision on a change, something to do in their professional lives and their personal lives, they're not just thinking about me. They're thinking about their community, their family, and that's what makes us so powerful. We are powerful because of our love. The other thing was that for my PhD, what I did, I studied migrants, newcomer migrants in the Central Texas area. What did that show me? It's the strongest people, the smartest, that leave a situation they're comfortable with, that they know, to use courage and to not just survive, but to flourish in new situations. Wherever any of you are, any community is lucky to have you. So I have 30 seconds, and the last thing I want to mention is the Victor Science study, freshmen in California. Oh, the Latinos might not have the best scores, but guess what? They, with their grades, they succeeded. They had a little more social time, but isn't that what makes us stronger? We party a little, we share ideas. Harvard study groups study together, learn together, succeed. So let's succeed more.
Thank you very much for those inspiring words, and it's great to know that Nora Comstock is in the spirit. Her spirit is in this room. Jacqueline, you are next. Welcome to the stage. Jacqueline.
Hello, and thank you so much for the invitation to participate in the Charla. Special thank you to Antonio Tijerino. First, I'd like to say Happy International Women's Day. Yes, Latina power in the house. I see so many incredible, beautiful Latinas and the men that support us, right? And help us do our best to shine every day. My identity, when Antonio first asked me to talk about that, I had to really wrap my brain around what it meant to be me today, right? But I can't talk about Jacqueline Monique Priego de la Cruz Picon Toledo Mier without talking about me in the past, the present, and the future. My past. I am the child of immigrant parents that immigrated to Chicago. Now, as Gloria said, these are some strong people that left their country, Mexico, not knowing the language, not knowing the society and the system, and they thrived. And they did amazing things in one of the coldest cities in all of America. These are warriors, these are survivors. These are my ancestors, and I hold so much pride in the immigrant story and how it's impacted me and my life. I carry the weight and the beauty of that past. I am my present. I am a fledgling filmmaker, storyteller. I just debuted this last fall a web series called Pink Slipped, and it is about the lives of 3 Latinas in their 30s, all on the verge of losing their jobs. Who doesn't have that identity? I don't know who. Because we are going through a technological revolution right now, and we are moving into a gig economy where, you know, our parents knew the better days of pensions and retirement plans, and now it's a revolving door of you're in a job for 2 years and then you're out. So I told this story, it's picking up steam. That's who I am today, right? I'm a storyteller. I'm taking these incredible meetings with huge networks that I can't say who I'm talking to pick it up, but you all will know really soon, and hopefully you support the show. And then there's my future. My identity is so wrapped in my future because I am my family and my ancestors' wildest dreams. I have taken that immigrant story. I have taken, you know, all the good and the bad from my history, my present, and I am putting all that stock in my future because I have a lot to live up to. Being the child of immigrants, being a former engineer that decided to switch over to communications, then switch over to the entertainment industry, it says a lot about that immigrant spirit. We aren't afraid of barriers or walls. We find ways around them. And that is who I am. That is my identity. And I leave you with that. Thank you.
So there's been a common thread, right, of resilience through all the different identities. That's what's really exciting about this. And we want you to share that on social. You know, so socialize away. Let's let South by Southwest know what's happening here this morning. Now it's my honor to introduce Matt Reitman. And I'm so thrilled of all that you've accomplished and your vision behind Yo Soy. I want to give this man a round of applause as he comes up to the stage. So come on up, Matt.
I think I'm the first one with a presentation, so I'll just hang tight while they load that. It shouldn't be too long, but just a basic introduction. I'm Matthew Reitman. I'm president and CEO of Reitman Initiatives, which sounds great, but until you realize it's a one-man show. And lately, I've been working on a fun project called Yo Soy, of which I'm the executive director, and here with my director, Esteban Vela. So before I'm the other Matthew. But before I go into that and talk about Yo Soy, you know, we're here to talk about identity. And so I'll share with you a little bit about my path. I was born and raised in Madison, Georgia, which is a small town that is pretty much half white and half black. And so though I have deep Hispanic roots tracing back to when Texas was still part of the homestead, I never got to appreciate and embody that until I moved to San Antonio. Next slide, please. And so it's interesting because I had never felt more estranged about my identity as a Hispanic until I walked into a gym and looked around and realized I'd never seen so many brown faces. Add that to the fact that I'm going to Vail Middle School, which is named after my grandfather, Robert Vail, who was a state senator and partially responsible for making UTSA happen. So, you know, I should have been walking into a room where I felt confident, but I felt estranged. And so as I kind of learned to interact and work with and communicate with my community, I ran into Antonio Tijerino, the man himself back here, president and CEO of Hispanic Heritage Foundation. And he awarded me with something that forever changed my life, the National Hispanic Heritage Youth Award. And what this did was show me that I belong in this community. I can be an Anglo-looking guy who didn't speak Spanish at the time, whose last name is Reitman, and still be every inch as Latino as anybody else. So through Antonio's connections, I interacted with Hispanic Scholarship Fund, HSF, and this is where I started being around similar-minded Latinos like myself and started seeing that there are other passionate, enthusiastic, caring Latinos that are my age and doing things in my community. So I started to gain some confidence here in my identity as a Latino. I taught myself Spanish. I began sharing and broadcasting my ideas with mentors, mentees, all my friends and colleagues. And then I decided that I'm going to do something with this kind of informal structure that I've built. I'm going to build something. So on the next slide, I decided to launch Yo Soy. And what Yo Soy is an effort to rebrand this pessimistic narrative that's dominating Hispanic and Latino communities today. So we are at a crossroads, I think now more than ever, where the diversity brand and the brand of Hispanics and Latinos is going to go one of two ways. And we each play a very critical role in deciding which way it goes. So the purpose of the Yo Soy project, which is a video project that I'll actually demonstrate shortly, is to empower us, to express our identities, to have a platform for sharing we are Latino, even though I don't look like everybody in this room, I don't speak like everybody, but I can champion that effort. And so I will actually do the first video. The premise is that you just on your phone, or you can make a full-blown production, but you start a video and you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, any setting, any context, but you end it in a Yo Soy statement. A statement that's designed to be a statement of pride, of identity, of expression, a rallying call, so that other people will feel empowered to do this as well. So, I'm proud to announce that everybody in this video is now featured in the first Yo Soy video that's going to go live on yosoyproject.us. Yo Soy, a proud Hispanic American businessman. Yo soy a community leader. Yo soy a connector. Yo soy a loving son and brother. And yo soy muy orgulloso estar aquí contigo. Muchísimas gracias.
Well, you know, Twitter was founded at South by Interactive, and I guess Yo Soy was founded as well. There we go. It's going to be a big deal, brother. Congratulations. Erica Rocha.
Hi, everyone. I'm kind of short, so I'm going to adjust this. I want to tease Tony a little bit because every time I'm in a setting where I have to be incredibly vulnerable, it's usually Tony's doing. I want to talk a little bit about who I am and who I'm discovering that I am. I am three things, and I also want to dissect them. I'm a DACA recipient, a first-generation immigrant to the United States. I'm a community organizer working in politics and in political campaigns. And I am also an American. But before I talk about that, I want to dissect each of these things. For too long, DACA recipients have been told who they are, what our identities are, what we have to look like, what we have to model to be worthy of American citizenship and to be worthy of the American dream. And over the past year, I've had this incredibly eye-opening experience of meeting 30 DACA recipients from across the United States, all who come together every other month to talk about our challenges and to work on professional development. And what I've discovered through our time there is that we come from very different backgrounds and we all agree on the same thing. We want to define ourselves. Lawmakers look at us and tell us that we must be college educated to be worthy of the American dream. Lawmakers look at us and tell us that we have to be young professionals and contribute to the economy to be part of the American dream. And they often tell us that we have to assimilate and that we have to talk the way they want us to talk and look the way they want us to look in order to be worthy of the American dream. My peers and myself are learning to redefine that and to say that we should support comprehensive immigration reform because of our humanity and not because of the titles that are before our names or the diplomas that hang on our walls. I am a community organizer. I have been lucky enough to work in Texas for over 5 years on political campaigns such as the Wendy Davis campaigns, local elections, and even supporting people on the State Board of Texas. But when I think about that, I realize that while I support these political organizations and candidates, I realize that I'm supporting a party I do not have the privilege of being able to vote for myself. I'm a progressive and I believe in progressive values, but I've never been able to actually vote. And that right won't come to me until who knows when. I knock on people's doors and I talk to them about why it's important for them to vote on the election. And I myself can't show up to the polls and say, this is who I support today. I realize that who I am has given me a very unique lens to look at the world. But what I've also realized over the past years is that that's why I'm a powerful community organizer, because I understand the privilege and the real issues that matter to us of those at home. I say I'm also an American because although this country has denied me many, many times and has told me that I am not, I feel American. The very first time that I felt American was hearing President Obama speak at the DNC. And I'm gonna give my age here, but I was a ninth grader in high school. And I remember hearing him speak at the DNC and talk about not being a collection of red states or blue states and Latino and African American, but really looking at ourselves as the United States of America. And for the very first time in my life, I felt like someone had included me as a part of that conversation. I got the privilege and had the privilege of meeting President Barack Obama and shaking his hand and asking him to continue to push for immigration reform. But I also got to thank him with my DACA card in my hand and tell him that I was one of the many who had been affected by this program and whose life had changed by this program. I will be 28 years old next Friday. And as I think about who I am and as I think about my identity, I realize that I am going to put a lot of the titles I put in front of you behind me and instead redefine who I am. So to follow the Yo Soy example, yo soy lo que yo digo que yo soy. Thank you.
That was a strong close. Thank you so much, and happy birthday in advance. It is my honor now to introduce Eli Murillo, who has been such an inspiring force across the country. So it's a beautiful moment to introduce you.
It's wonderful to be here. Nice to meet you all. My name is Eliana Murillo, and I am a proud member of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation community. Thank you to Tony for inviting me. And happy International Women's Day. It's something that I think we don't celebrate enough. And I thought about that, actually. I thought about how this is a month, all of March, we celebrate to honor women. But often Latinas don't participate in International Women's Day activities and Women's Month. And so a week ago, I declared that it is Latina Women's Month, which is really the same thing. But often, we don't feel a part of one, or maybe the other. When in reality, we're both, right? We can be 200%. We can celebrate normal Women's Month and Latina Women's Month because we are one. But it's not always easy. I was raised in California, born here. My mom was born here. My dad was born in Mexico. I generally tell people I'm second generation, but I'm really 1.5, which isn't really a real thing. But I'm very proud to be a Mexican American from California who identifies as, we like to say in my family, a chulada educada. I'm going to put that on her shirt soon. Went to college, had that opportunity, still connected to my community. I now work in tech, and I'm one of the few Latina leaders in tech, and it's not easy being one of few, but I will speak for all of us in saying we take that responsibility very seriously, because my passion is to make sure our community has access to technology through these opportunities, to understand platforms and different things like that. And I thought about identity a lot my whole life, being one of the only Latinas in honors classes growing up at a school that was 93% Mexican. So none of my classmates looked like me, but everybody around me did. I ended up going to Harvard, where it was a totally different experience, even though I found my community there. Ended up at Google. And so throughout this, I've thought about, how do I continue to bring my community with me? How do I retain my culture? And I really reflected on identity when I went through a very difficult injury, and I had traumatic brain damage done. Or not damage, I'm recovered. I'm recovering, I'm on my path there. But there was then a moment of reflection when I could no longer be on a computer. Even right now, looking at the screen, it's not easy for me. And that makes me actually feel emotional, because I had identified so much and felt so proud to be a Latina in tech. But who am I when I can't use tech anymore? Who am I when I can't do my job? And I was on disability, and I was on bed rest, essentially. And so I started making art. And I had my Frida Kahlo moment, just channeling everything I could around my cultura. And here's a self-portrait of me, just, hair out wild, and lighting my soul on fire. And so I thought, okay, I was kind of spiraling about, who am I? What if I can't go back to work one day? And I can, and I'll be fine. But in that moment, when hard things happen to you, you think the worst. You don't know what's coming next. And so in that moment, I thought, how do I even identify myself anymore? If I'm not a Latina in tech, which was really my world for so many years, about 7 years at that point, and how do I define who I am? And I don't know if you've ever thought of what's one word that you could use to define you, but I found mine. And I remembered a poem I had written before that I had never shared publicly. And so this is only the second time that I have ever revealed it out loud. But it's about my definition of the word that I now have come to embrace, and it is the word chingona. And if you're not a Mexican American, if you don't know what that word means, and if you do and need to be reminded, here's what the word means. And before I do it, I'm gonna ask for a selfie, because I am a Latina tech-loving, selfie-taking millennial. Smile, everybody. Okay, I'm gonna Photoshop a few into those empty seats. So this is what I think it means to be a chingona. So I wrote, today I will be a chingona. Being a chingona is both a choice and an honor. It is a constant state of mind not to be taken lightly. And the word chingona is making a comeback. Giving credit where credit is due, the incredible Sandra Cisneros reminded me once to own my chingonaness. And my mom has always told me to be a chingona. And she sort of cringes when I acknowledge her publicly for that. It was never meant to be bitchy or anything negative in my house. It was always a compliment and an aspiration. But she also told me not to ever share this poem out loud. And our parents want to keep us safe. I have 30 seconds and I just have to finish the poem, so thank you. And she said, don't share it, mija, because some people won't understand. They may not know what it was like to say chingona at our house. It can mean some things that were, once upon a time were negative, and I don't want you associated with that. And I told her, I have to share this, because this is my truth, and I think that we can redefine language, we can redefine how we use it, and we can redefine ourselves. So let's establish once and for all that being a chingona is a very, very good thing. I'd like to thank Urban Dictionary for describing chingonas as the most badass girls in the world. Very flattering. But how do you describe chingona to the unfamiliar? Let me count the ways. A chingona is dynamic. A chingona hustles. She doesn't sit tight, she makes it happen. So we should go support all their businesses. A chingona fights for what she believes in, conviction through and through. A chingona is passionate. A chingona is so passionate, some people might think she's a little insane. A chingona is powerful. She has strength, courage, and hard work. A chingona is determined. She pushes, sprints, and dives into everything she does. A chingona sees no limits. open-minded, and audacious. A chingona does it for her gente. If you call yourself a chingona, you can't forget the people who helped you become one. And a chingona attracts other chingonas. I see many here. And this is very important because there's no way you're doing it alone. And a chingona has very little room for envy and insecurities because that fuels the haters, but it really creates bonds among other chingonas. And this dynamic creates a shared connection that any real chingona can understand. A chingona is true to herself and doesn't let anyone else change her. It's hard enough to be a chingona. It's harder to be one on someone else's terms. A chingona is restless. She stays up at night, she wakes up early, and she still wants more hours in the day. And a chingona is loud. Introvert, extrovert, it doesn't matter because her voice is heard. A chingona defines success for herself, and others may not understand what success means to her, perhaps because her own definition of success is bigger than herself. A chingona wants to see other chingonas coming up. As a beloved mentor once told me, it gets lonely at the top. Bring people with you. A chingona looks good. She wears confidence, humility, and grace, and she makes it look great. A chingona is full of mystery. You never know what's brewing behind her eyes, behind her story, but oh yes, is it intriguing. A chingona is up for adventures. The only way for a chingona to stay driven is to find out what else is out there. And a chingona trusts in the universe. And when you want something, the universe will conspire to help you achieve it. By Paulo Coelho, a chingon in his own right. A chingona sometimes gets stretched too thin, and she's working on that. A chingona is inspired by those who push boundaries and live on the edge of passion for whatever they believe in. A chingona is a dancer. In spirit or in heels, she lives to a rhythm all her own. A chingona values quality people she can trust, nothing less. A chingona can put her hair up and get her hands dirty. She also cleans up well. A chingona believes in the strength of bold black eyeliner, always making a statement. A chingona sees a challenge and runs toward it. That's just how it works. Aim for what is hard and you'll thrive. A chingona is tough, sincere, and kind. All juxtaposition. A chingona is the definition of pride, ache, dreams, and strength. A chingona may be the president one day. A chingona is my mom, who I love dearly, and thank you, Mom, if you see this. A chingona will be my daughter. A chingona is here to stay. Today, I will be a chingona porque yo soy una chingona. Gracias.
Hashtag chingona. Whoa, that was powerful. And there will be a chingona president. Not maybe, there will be.
I don't want to be politically.
That was wonderful. And there's definitely a chingona network here in Austin. And so I hope you all get together and I'll see it somewhere. Everybody will sense it. This has been a great experience. And you mentioned a name that I'd like to just highlight one time more, and it's Antonio Tijerino. He's like the ultimate connective tissue. I mean, I don't know when the man sleeps, but he has been an inspiring influence on me as well. Answers the call, no matter what coast, wherever he's at. Antonio, thank you, because you have brought all us together. That's the bottom line. And next, we bring up to the stage Elida. Elida, it's your moment.
So I'm Elida Guardia de Bonet. I'm from Panama. I am a storyteller, a writer, and a college counselor. So I want to share with you a story that is about my college application. I held the application to St. Louis University in my hands. I had completed it all by myself, except for one question. I was not sure what box to check. Mommy should know. I thought, after all, this was her home city, her home country. I was never expecting the force of her feelings, her sharp answer. Just look at yourself, you're white. It was 1980. Yes, I'm older than many of you. The application was asking about race, white, black, and American Indian. There was no box for mestizo. There was no Latino box. That would come much later. My mother was so angry, so upset. Was she worried that any other check box would mean in her home city of St. Louis?
a city that so openly discriminated against blacks, where some of her own family members had been suspicious of my father's Latino heritage and his not so white skin. At the end, the white box was the only box I was able to check with some degree of truthfulness. I was never comfortable with that answer. So many years later, I still feel that I denied a part of me, of my father. In graduate school, I learned that I'm not just a Latina, I'm a woman of color. I still have a hard time with that. Do I need to classify myself as a woman of color even if my skin is white, just because my whiteness does not come from the Anglo-Saxon European blood bank 100%? Or the gringos version of what it is to be white? If I self-identify as a Latina, which I do I need to let go of my white skin color? In 1997, the American Anthropological Association, my second master's was in anthropology, recommended to get rid of the race categories because race is not real. In the census, white includes people having origins in any of the peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. But the Census Bureau also states that the racial categories represent a social political construct that reflects a social definition of race as recognized in this country. On the streets in the US, white means an English-speaking person of Anglo-Saxon origin with an American accent. No other accents are allowed. A different accent rips away your whiteness. Daily, I have the privileges of a white person. It is not until some detect my accent and ask, "Where are you from?" that I may experience some of the prejudice that darker Latinos experience often and daily. In the 1980s census, there was even a question about how well a person spoke English. I would not have been able to get a seal of authenticity for my accent. No wonder we have no idea what box to check. The boxes do not represent the reality of our streets, the reality of our mixtures. The worst thing is that for many, only if you fit into the right whiteness category can you be considered a real American. How can we make the categories we create useful and truly reflective of who we are? So many years later, I still struggle with it. We should be able to be who we are and not have to explain ourselves to others. On the mornings when I don't want to fight this battle anymore, I am reminded by a comment or a question that the struggle must continue. Just the other day, a student called, Miss Bonet, come here, help me. What do I check here? She was in this section of Applied Texas, college application about ethnicity and race. I now look at them and I laugh and I say, well, there's not a box for nice brown color, nice tan, mestiza. So what do we check? My husband says we check the one that is the closest to us. So we pick. But I really wish for that box to appear, one that shows our mixtures, our complete version of who we really are. And yes, we are all Americans. Yo soy Latina y soy también gringa.
Thank you. Strong finish and beginning and middle. Matt Baron.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank y'all for having me. We can actually just skip to the last bit of this slide and just have it all up there. That'll be fine. So today I just want to tell y'all a little bit about myself and my journey to doing whatever it is that I do now, because apparently I've been told I do it well. I'm a senior at the University of Texas. I was groomed for this university, as you can tell. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, where my father met my mother at the university where he was teaching with tenure. And I never really got to know him because when I was born, he escaped the situation to teach at Columbia University in Manhattan. While I was growing up in the east side of Austin, which was commonly recognized as dangerous and poor, undesirable, I was getting my private school funded by my father in Manhattan and driving every day across town to go to school with Michael Dell's kids, the Barton kids, and seeing this, different environment where I would go home with my friends and see their parents and go home to only a mother. Fast forward a few years, I've been accepted into the university of my dreams, the University of Texas at Austin, where I elected to study biochemistry and pursue medical school. Ultimately, I realized that is not for me. I got into a bunch of different, media productions for a bunch of different clients, and now I have found myself as a creative strategist for some of the brands that I love most and interact with most on a daily basis. And I think I'm very blessed to say that I do that. But through this process, finding my identity was something that I really struggled with, because going to private school, growing up in the east side, I never really knew who my real friends were because I was the only Latino at this school, and my first grade teacher was very rude to me openly. And nobody had anything to say about it, not even the principal or dean of the school. It was Episcopal school. So I never really understood the significance of why my mother would call her a pendeja. And anyway, so, eventually I got into college, and as I've realized that medical school wasn't for me, because I'm blessed with the opportunity to work at the Heart Hospital of Austin for 4 years now. I still work there. I started a company with my friend, media company. We profitably exited that company, and that allowed us to get into music festivals for free. I love music. And that's kind of where everything started, and at the same rate derailed as far as my professional development went. I went on to use that leverage that I had built for myself to get in-house for basically all of these companies here, and build strategies for them based on the media work that I had done. It was just a way for me to get ideas off, because I'm an ideas person. I like innovation, and I hope that I can do a lot for the people I care about and the brands that I care about. Anyway, I got to the company of my dreams, Austin City Limits, which recently got acquired by Live Nation. And I got there, and I was one of 2 Mexicans in a company that housed, I don't know, maybe over 100 people. And that really just felt awful to me. It was a very trying experience for me. Ultimately, I graduated from C3, the company that houses Austin City Limits. And I went on to work for Nice Kicks, where it's much more representative, I would say, and it's given me the opportunity to work with everyone else on this board and more. I've realized that studying the work that my father did, he sat on the board for UT Political Science. He fought for Latino rights and politics. He sat on the U.S. Foreign Affairs Council. And I realized that he fought for my people, and he was a seat at the table in many places representing our people. He founded the Mexican American Cultural Museum here in Austin. He was a part of that, where I grew up playing guitar a lot of times. That was a lot of fun. But as I sit in all of these rooms doing strategy and doing what I think is cool, because that's what I love to do, I realized that I, like my father, although I never got to know him, am representing my people and continuing his work. Thank y'all.
And it's so great to hear about the impact of your family here in Austin. So it's something I want to talk to you about. Next on stage, thank you for sharing, Maya Joelson. Maya? Okay. Esteban Vela, come on up.
Hey guys, first off I want to say thank you for everybody coming out. It's a big part for you guys to all be here today, and it takes time out of y'all's day, so we really appreciate it. Also a big thanks to Casa Mexico for putting this on for us. This is a beautiful scene. And so I'll give a little introduction. My name is Esteban Vela. I co-founded 3 ventures. The first was Young Scholar Development, which is what I implemented in my hometown. It was a mentorship program to help Latinos and Hispanics, underprivileged specifically, be able to gain access to college. And then I co-founded and currently the CEO of a company called Via, which is an online travel platform to employ disconnected youth and unemployed youth in Latin America specifically. And then director of Yo Soy, which is what we are presenting here today. And next slide. So I'll do a little introduction. My name is Esteban Vela. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, specifically Harlingen, Texas. And we talked a little bit about the identity box. Alita had referenced it. And a funny story that came to mind was I remember in first grade sitting in my class, which is in the Rio Grande Valley, about 95% Hispanic and Latinos, and myself, very gringo, colored eyes. And so I was sitting in class looking at the box for one of our tests, and I remember not knowing what to sign off. And I remember looking over to my my classmates saying, okay, I'll just copy what they're putting down. And I saw Hispanic, so I just clicked it off. And I remember after class, the teacher called me back and was like, why'd you check this off? You're white. And I said, but my name's Esteban. And she's like, your name's Esteban. And I was like, no. I identify as Esteban Moises, right? And that's kind of what my grandfather and my father instilled in me at such a young age was, your name is Esteban Moises Vela. You are not Esteban. People are going to call you Esteban everywhere you go. And so that's kind of what I learned to know, was what identity I truly felt and believed in. And kind of how you had referenced, what do you feel right here is what matters to you most. And so I didn't care about the boxes at any point. I said, you know what, I don't care what these teachers think to identify me as. I don't care what other students think to identify me as, because I identify myself as what I believe in. And so that being said, some of the challenges that I had in the Rio Grande Valley were just environmental constraints. The Rio Grande Valley, specifically Harlingen and Brownsville area, is actually the most uneducated and impoverished area in all of Texas, and in the top 2 in the United States. And so coming from that region, I was able to go over to friends' houses every night, to kids who didn't have a bed to sleep on some nights, and they would sleep on the couch or on the floor. And I would hang out with them, and I didn't think anything of it. Not once did I ever think, why is this happening? I just assumed that it was just a way of life, and I totally agreed with it. And I come from a very, very blessed background and an extremely, extremely blessed family. And that being said, I'm extremely thankful for everything and all the opportunities they have provided to me. And so when I came to the university, which not a lot of us do in the Rio Grande Valley, are able to get out and go to university. But when I came the first year, I remember I was failing. I was not doing well whatsoever in my classes. But I had met Matt in our geology class, which is not a good class for me. But in that class, Matt made me feel like I was a success. He truly changed the way my identity was at UT. I was, getting C's, some D's in some of these classes, but that wasn't a reflection of who I was and kind of the bigger calling I had. And so after that first year and after Matt really helped me identify myself and what my calling is, I started the mentorship program in the Rio Grande Valley to try to get more kids access to college and be able to follow along the path that the few of us are able to get out of the Rio Grande Valley. And that was an extremely insightful opportunity. I was able to develop networks down in the Rio Grande Valley with lots of individuals. I have 30 seconds, okay? So that was just kind of going against the status quo. The status quo in the Rio Grande Valley was you graduate high school, just go get a job next door. As Hispanic parents, we don't want you to venture too far. We want you close to home, close to our hearts. And so our methodology of teaching in this mentorship program was, you're gonna be able to leave, but at the end of the day, if you're able to bring it back to your community and to your hometown, that's the bigger purpose. And so that was my calling, was whatever I do here in Austin, whatever I do regardless, I'm planning on taking it back to the Rio Grande Valley. Because at the end of the day, the Valley has given to me everything that has gotten me to this point today. And so everything that I do, I would love to be able to take back there at some point and be able to implement back in my hometown. Yo Soy, as we are going on, this project is an amazing opportunity. And this was kind of one of the 3 things that I wanted to highlight were the 17 UN global goals that Yo Soy is trying to accomplish. We're accomplishing 3, which are quality education, decent work and economic growth, and reduced inequalities. And so the UN Global Goals is something I hold very passionate to. It's two companies that I have founded and co-founded. We strive to aim to hit these global goals by 2030. And so when Matt and I talked and discussed about Yo Soy, one of the first things that came to mind was, how do we partner with the UN and try to attain these global goals? And so currently that's in the works. It's something that we're extremely, extremely excited about. And I'll finish off as Yo Soy. Yo soy social entrepreneur, yo soy a social impactor, and yo soy Esteban Vela. Thank you.
#RGV, hook 'em horns. I'm the CEO of the Latino Business Action Network, and we've aggregated the #1 collective of scaled Latino and Latina firms in U.S. history. And the next person I'm introducing is a graduate of our Stanford Scaling Program, Manuel Oblitas.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take the mandatory selfie here for my kids, if you don't mind. All right, everybody say hello. Thank you. I run an IT company in San Antonio that I founded with my brother back in 2002. But we'll start diving into really what my identity is. When I was asked to do this, I figure identity comes from two areas, I feel. #1 is what is given to you. Your heritage, your parents, your culture, where you grew up. And the second is what you make out of it. So the first thing I can tell you is that my grandfather used to repair TVs at a repair shop back in the 80s. I grew up going to his shop, seeing him work with electronics. My brother and I really fell for that. We would go visit him just to see him repair TVs. I mean, really, who kid plays with those kinds of things, right? But we learned how to solder because of him early on, before the age of 10. And we spend more time there than playing with other kids. Then second is my dad. My dad, I grew up seeing him work in his textile manufacturing company in Peru. He will always tell us stories, but the stories were not textbook stories. There were stories about how he grew up, about how he was in the Andes with no shoes. Sometimes he couldn't eat. He would travel to neighboring cities to be able to sell. He will sell eggs, he will sell chickens, newspapers, you name it. Those are the stories that I would hear every day. Work hard because it comes back to you. That stayed with us. And the proof was when we decided to migrate to the United States in 1995. My dad gave us 3 months rent and said, guys, for my brother and I, my brother was 21, I was 20, and then this is it. If you guys are going to stay. You have to work. You have to go to school. We took on the challenge. But that was not it. My mom said, pues, ¿sabes qué? Si tú te mudas, I'm coming. So she brought my little brother, my little sister, and they came with us. My dad had to sell businesses and deal with stuff in Peru. He couldn't stay here. His decision was final. He said, if you decide to move, you are going to work. I was working at McDonald's, my first job, with my brother. We were able to sustain the family and be head of household at early age. Next year, in '96, my dad came back. He saw that we were making money, we were saving money, we were paying for our own first college classes, and it was moving. We bought our first house collectively in 1996. I was barely about to turn 21, and I got my first house. And the challenges came forward. When we decided to start our own company, my brother and I, in 2002. People will tell us, no, the businesses fail. We decided to take on the challenge and moved forward and did that. And now, this is what I do now. But not everything's color de rosa, as they say. In 1992, I had an experience when we tried to migrate to the United States, in which we tried to go and register for high school, and we were discriminated against. Because of the fact that we didn't speak English very well, the principal told some things to my parents, and it wasn't pretty. Throughout the years, I felt that a feeling of fitting in. I always wanted to speak better English, to fit better with the culture. It's something that even resonated to my kids. I look at my heritage differently now. And now I even take salsa classes, bachata, de todo. I try to fit in better now and push for my heritage to my kids now. Then I went through divorce. Obviously, for those who have gone through it, is a really terrible thing to go through. To have to spend with your kids every single day to then just a couple of days a week. I became super dad. I joined PTA. I decided to run the father volunteer program at their school. I did whatever I could to make sure that I cherish that time with them better than before. So then now I think about what have I accomplished? I've done many things because of the liberties and the discipline that my brother and I had early on from working, saving, and everything. I mean, we bought instruments. We learned how to play guitar, drums, all on our own. My parents couldn't afford it at that time. My dad closed business in Peru. He moved to the United States eventually. But now I see the future for me is heritage. It's what I give to my kids. It's those stories that now they will tell that I told them like I heard from my father. Now that is for me the future. So yo soy un empresario. Yo soy un Latino father. And basically, that defines me, guys. Thank you very much.
Super dad you are, man. Thank you. Juan Carlos Merlo. Yes, this is our last speaker, and so excited to hear your story, man.
So hello, my name is Juan Carlos Merlo. I was born in San Antonio, Texas. My mom is from Mexico. My dad is from Mexico. My mom's from Spain. And I lived my entire life like not knowing who I was, right? In San Antonio, where I grew up, yo era mexicano. O sea, yo era mexicano, los demás eran gringos, yo era mexicano. In Mexico, I was gringo. You know, like I wasn't part of them. I remember specifically when I was in the United States, whenever Mexico was playing, like I would cheer for Mexico. And when I was in Mexico, everyone would be like, no sé, los gringos, no sé qué, sabes, de que super like anti like America. That I'd be like, no, like come on, United States, like you can do it too. So I was disheveled and I didn't know where my true passions lied. I didn't know who I was. I consider myself a border child, right? Because I was in the middle. I was half American, half Mexican. So I was el mexicano gringo y el gringo mexicano. So I then had to kind of develop my own culture. I wasn't my dad. I wasn't my mom. I wasn't Spanish. I wasn't Mexican. I was both. I was a Mexican American. So this is kind of who I am now. Half American, half Mexican, and that is who I am today. I also brought something that I think really shows you who I go for in terms of a soccer team. So I just wanted to wear this to show my true passion. It's always with me. It goes everywhere I go. And I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called Clean'em. Since October of last year, so October 2018, we've grown to be around $100,000 in annual recurring revenue. And what we've been doing is, as a Latino, I grew up with muchachas around the house. You know, it's something very Latino. We grew up with nannies, or however you want to call them, but they become part of the family. It's their birthday. You give them hugs. You're actually more scared of them than your own parents because, you know, like you do not talk bad to your muchacha. It does not go well. And coming to the United States, I realized that these hardworking men and women in this cleaning industry, there's not that much respect for them. You know, it's almost like they're exploited for their skills, their manual labor, the productivity in the U.S., you know, and that's what our growth rate depends on. You know, the productivity of each of these immigrant members that are really tend to be more entrepreneurial than anyone else. So we decided to give a platform where we're paying these cleaners, you know, $18 to $20 an hour for cleaning, and letting them choose their own hours. So we have a lot of people working for us that, you know, like, hey, yo trabajo en una cocina from 8 to 12, and I have to go pick up my kids at 1, and then I have to go drop them off at tutor at 4, right? But I want to work from 1 to 4, and I want to clean. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? We set up a platform. We background check you, screen you, everything. And we have 10, 15, 20 cleaners doing 100 cleans, 100 plus cleans in the last few months, doing these things, earning $20, $25 an hour of cleaning, and we're charging 40% less than anyone else. I say this because I found something that connected my American and Mexican culture to my job, or to what my vision was, to empower these underrepresented minority men and women. These are the people that work super hard. They're the best cleaners, the best workers in general. So it's something that I'm very proud to say, something I'm very proud to represent. I'm going full forward with this. You know, we're actually presenting at another South by event on Monday. And my birthday's on Thursday. I know someone else's birthday was on Friday. So this next week is going to be awesome, and I'm just so happy to be here. This last slide is just a picture of me again. Oh, no, this one. And it was just kind of saying, like, yo soy yo, y no lo que tú digas que yo soy. Yo seré lo que yo soy. Yo fui una cosa, yo seré otra cosa, pero ahorita yo soy lo que yo digo que soy, y no voy a dejar que tú me digas lo que yo soy. Gracias.
That's how you end a charla, right? Thank you, Casa Mexico, the consul. Thank you very much. Of course, Abargon with this beautiful production, Hispanic Heritage Foundation, the Vision, Matt, and Yo Soy. Everybody, La Familia de Austin, and all those who traveled. And have a great day. And those of you who didn't share your story up here, you know where to go now. So that's it. Have a great day. Gracias.